The 40th anniversary of a pioneering event involving a Northamptonshire woman. Janis Hetherington from Byfield became the first lesbian to conceive by artificial insemination. In subsequent years, she encountered prejudice and criticism, but decided to speak out after a tabloid expose of a clinic which offered insemination to lesbian couples. She's been telling her story to our Daventry reporter, Martin Heath.
I met Judy in London. Judy was my lover, and she had a daughter, Lisa, 5 years old. We enjoyed everything. We were very political in lots of ways, but we enjoyed our life, and I had lots of relationships with women, certainly more than Nick Clegg reckons he's had.
The couple decided they wanted a child, but although the idea of artificial insemination had come up in conversation, it wasn't widely available, and no other lesbian in Britain had had a child that way before.
Insemination was something that a couple of the doctors who came to our dinner parties had been carrying out on heterosexual couples. So it wasn't as if I hadn't known about it. And, you know, I'd sort of laughingly said at the parties, well, if I was going to have a child, that's the way that I would have it. And so, in a kind of way, the preparation work was already done.
So the next step was finding a doctor who would carry out the procedure and someone to be the donor. In the end, the same doctor did both.
This particular doctor, the donor, was actually somebody who was fairly well known for running one of the first abortion clinics. But ironically, he also ran a fertility clinic. And because he was very well understanding of feminism as was understood at that time, he wasn't averse to the fact that I could be a lesbian wanting a child and he could help me.
The fact that Janis wanted a doctor to be the donor did attract some criticism.
What normally happens is a medical student will make a donation, a sperm donation. He gets £10 and he goes off and does his studies. That kept him in beer for a couple of weeks or whatever. I didn't actually want that. I wanted a much more scientific approach. I had subsequently been accused of having a sort of Nazi attitude towards the fact that I selected the father, which is actually nonsense. But if you're talking about, did I opt for selective breeding? Did I choose someone who I thought had a superior intelligence? The answer is yes, I did.
Janis and Judy's baby Nikki was born in January 1972. The family suffered a tragedy later that year when Judy died of a heart attack. Janis and Nikki led a relatively quiet life until 1977, when two tabloid newspapers broke the story that a clinic was offering insemination to female couples.
A friend of mine said to me, have you read the Evening Standard? There's a huge thing about insemination in it. It looks as if the doctor who is providing the clinic for these girls to be inseminated is going to have to close down, and they're saying that people who are born that way probably come out with two heads, or it's a terrible life to bring people up into. Will you do something about it, Janis? Will you go public? And I discussed it with Nikki, his headmistress at the school he was at the time, who was brilliant. And she said, Janis, you owe it to people to be able to explain that Nikki is not going to grow up with two heads, that he is a lovely little boy.
Janis and Nikki went on to tell their story on television and in newspapers on both sides of the Atlantic. 40 years on, Janis says things have changed for lesbians who want children, and there's even a highly respected clinic not too far from Northamptonshire.
I did a programme for the BBC up in Birmingham, and they've got a wonderful clinic there called www.gayfamilyweb.co.uk. And it's professionally done in the sense that there's backup, they have interviews, and it's a brilliant setup. And I just hope and pray that, everything they do meets with terrific success, because they deserve it.
Janis Hetherington from Byfield talking to our Daventry reporter Martin Heath. Janis became the first lesbian to conceive by artificial insemination.